The hallway fell silent as his palm struck her face. In a blur of motion, the school's biggest bully found himself pinned to the ground, wondering how the quiet new girl had moved so fast. What the students didn't know was that behind her shy smile lay years of elite combat training. She wasn't just any teenage girl, she was Agent Zero, and this ordinary high school was about to become her most dangerous mission yet. The echo of combat boots against steel floors filled the underground facility of Section 7, a covert government program hidden beneath the Nevada desert. In the dimly lit training arena, 16-year-old Maya Chen, known only as Agent Zero, faced off against 3 armed opponents. Her dark ponytail whipped through the air as she ducked under a swing, her movements precise and lethal. Within seconds, all 3 attackers lay groaning on the mat, their training weapons scattered across the floor. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Time? Maya called out, barely breaking a sweat, her breathing controlled and steady despite the intensity of the combat simulation. 14 seconds. New record. Commander Foster's voice boomed through the speakers. The older woman's steel-gray hair and sharp eyes appeared behind the observation glass. But you hesitated on the final takedown. Emotion is a liability, Zero. We've discussed this before. Maya's jaw tightened. After 12 years in Section 7's youth program, she'd heard those words countless times. Orphaned children, trained from age 4 to become the perfect undercover operatives. No attachments, no identity, no life beyond the mission. The program had taken everything from them, even their names replaced by numbers. That night, lying in her sterile quarters, Maya stared at the ceiling, its pristine white surface matching the colorless walls that had surrounded her for as long as she could remember. On her tablet, she'd secretly downloaded videos of normal high school life. Teens laughing, sharing lunch, going to prom, experiencing the simple joys of friendship and belonging. A world as foreign to her as another planet. Her fingers traced the small scar behind her ear, where Section 7 had implanted their tracking device. Every agent had one. Insurance against desertion, a constant reminder of their golden cage. The training facility hummed with its usual artificial life, the soft whir of surveillance cameras, the distant sounds of combat training, the measured footsteps of guards patrolling the corridors. Maya had memorized every sound, every pattern, every shift change over the years, knowledge that would soon prove crucial. The next morning, Commander Foster summoned Maya to the briefing room. The commander's office was a testament to precision. Every item perfectly aligned, every surface spotless, much like the woman herself. "We have a situation at Lincoln Heights High in California," Foster announced, her voice carrying the weight of authority that had shaped Maya's entire existence. "Multiple students have vanished without a trace. Local authorities are clueless, but our intel suggests something bigger." Foster's fingers danced across the holographic display, bringing up student profiles and incident reports. "We believe a hostile organization is using the school as a recruitment ground, targeting specific students." Maya studied the files with practiced detachment, though her heart raced at the implications. 5 missing students in 3 months, all top performers in athletics or academics. No bodies, no ransom demands, just empty beds and grieving families. Each disappearance perfectly executed, leaving no evidence behind, the mark of professionals. "Your mission is simple," Foster continued, her gray eyes boring into Maya's. "Enroll as a transfer student, identify the recruiters, stop them before more children disappear." She paused, eyes narrowing. "This is a test, Zero. Your performance will determine if you're ready for solo field operations. We've invested too much in your training to risk failure." Maya's heart raced despite her calm exterior. A real mission, away from Section 7's walls. "Parameters? You'll pose as Maya Chen, a transfer student living with our local asset, a retired agent posing as your aunt. Minimal contact, no unnecessary interactions." Foster's lips thinned. "Remember, high school students are emotional, irrational. Don't let them cloud your judgment. Your cover story has been crafted carefully. Family relocating due to work, previous school records created, social media presence established. Everything you need is in this file. That afternoon, as Maya packed her regulation black duffel bag, she made a decision that had been years in the making. This mission wasn't just about stopping mysterious disappearances. It was her chance at freedom. For 12 years, Section 7 had controlled every aspect of her life, molding her into their perfect agent. Now, with months of planning and careful preparation, she had everything she needed: forged documents, encrypted accounts, and most importantly, a contact willing to remove the tracking implant. She'd spent years preparing for this moment, studying more than just combat techniques. While other agents focused solely on their training, Maya had learned to hack their systems, memorized patrol patterns, and slowly built an escape plan. She'd watched countless hours of normal teenage life, learning how to blend in, how to act like someone who hadn't spent their life learning 100 ways to incapacitate an opponent. But first, she had to play her part perfectly. One wrong move, one hint of her true intentions, and she'd lose everything. As Maya boarded the transport vehicle, she caught her reflection in the window, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Soon, she'd be just another face in the crowd at Lincoln Heights High. The transport hummed beneath her as desert sands gave way to California highways. Somewhere ahead lay Lincoln Heights High, where a mysterious threat was making students vanish. But Maya had her own mission now, far more personal than anything Section 7 had assigned. She was going to solve the case, save those missing students, and then she was going to disappear. After all, who better to vanish without a trace than someone trained their entire life to do exactly that? Maya arrived at the modest two-story house in suburban California just as the sun began to set. Agent Sarah Winters, now Aunt Sarah, greeted her with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The former Section 7 operative had traded her tactical gear for suburban mom attire, but Maya could spot the concealed weapon beneath her cardigan. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the right," Sarah said, maintaining their cover despite being alone. "School starts at 8 a.m. sharp tomorrow. Remember, we're keeping things minimal. I'm your aunt. You're here because your parents are working abroad. Stick to the script." The bedroom was a stark contrast to Maya's quarters at Section 7. Floral wallpaper, a desk with a laptop, and a closet filled with carefully selected normal teenage clothes. Everything picked to help her blend in, down to the last detail. Maya ran her fingers over a soft purple sweater, so different from her usual tactical gear. That night, she meticulously reviewed her cover story while unpacking. Maya Chen, 16, only child. Parents are environmental scientists currently stationed in South America. Decent grades, no remarkable achievements that might draw attention. The perfect forgettable student. Exactly what she needed to be. She pulled out her secured tablet, reviewing the files on the missing students. Anna Martinez, star athlete. James Cooper, chess champion. Lily Wong, top of her class. Sarah Palmer, coding prodigy. Michael Davidson, debate team captain. All vanished within 3 months, leaving no traces behind. The only common thread: they were all exceptional in their fields. A notification popped up on her screen. A message from Commander Foster. "Remember your training. Trust no one. Report any suspicious activity immediately." Maya's jaw clenched. Every message, every check-in was another chain binding her to Section 7. But not for long. The next morning, Maya stood before her mirror, transforming herself into an ordinary teenager. Casual clothes, light makeup, hair styled in a way that would help her blend in with the crowd. She'd studied countless hours of teenage behavior, social media posts, and high school dramas to prepare for this role. "Your schedule," Sarah handed her a printed timetable over breakfast. "I've arranged for you to have classes near each of the locations where students were last seen. The school's security system has blind spots. I've marked them on your phone's map." Maya nodded, memorizing the layout. "Any patterns in the disappearances?" "All occurred during school hours between classes. No witnesses, no surveillance footage. Whoever's behind this knows the school's routine perfectly." Sarah's expression hardened. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Be careful. These aren't amateurs we're dealing with. Lincoln Heights High loomed before her, a sprawling complex of brick buildings and manicured lawns. Students streamed through the main entrance, chattering, laughing, living their normal lives. Maya took a deep breath, adjusting her backpack. Time to put her training to use. The school office was her first stop. The secretary, Mrs. Martinez, handed her a stack of forms with a warm smile. "Welcome to Lincoln Heights. Let me know if you need anything, dear." Maya noted how the woman's eyes lingered on her file, likely reporting to someone about the new arrival. As she navigated the crowded hallways, Maya's trained eyes caught every detail. Security camera positions, emergency exits, potential escape routes. She mapped the school's rhythm, which teachers patrolled the halls, which students commanded attention where the crowds thinned out. Her first class was advanced chemistry, shared with one of the missing students' former lab partners. Maya chose a seat with a clear view of both exits, observing her classmates. Some were still discussing Michael Davidson's disappearance, their theories ranging from mundane to absurd. "I heard he was recruited by the CIA," one student whispered. "No way, he definitely ran away with that college girl he was seeing," another argued. Maya kept her expression neutral while her mind raced. These students had unknowingly provided more information than any official report. She needed to get closer, but carefully. Any sudden interest in the missing students would raise red flags. During lunch, she found a quiet spot in the cafeteria, positioning herself to observe the social dynamics. The usual high school hierarchy was evident. Athletes, academics, artists, all in their distinct groups. But something felt off. The way certain students moved through the crowds, how they watched others. It reminded her of surveillance techniques she'd learned at Section 7. A commotion near the vending machines caught her attention. Two larger students were cornering a smaller one, their body language aggressive. Maya's muscles tensed instinctively, but she forced herself to stay seated. Drawing attention on her first day would be a rookie mistake. Just then, her phone buzzed. Another message from Foster. "Status report required." Maya typed a brief response, keeping it professional and vague. Every communication was a risk, but maintaining her cover with Section 7 was crucial until she could implement her escape plan. As the final bell rang, Maya had compiled her initial observations. The missing students hadn't just been top performers. They'd been outliers, people who stood out despite trying to blend in, just like her. Someone was watching this school, selecting targets with specific criteria in mind. Walking home, Maya felt eyes on her. A black SUV passed by twice, its windows tinted. Standard surveillance technique. But who was watching? Section 7 checking up on her, or the same people responsible for the disappearances? One thing was certain. She wasn't the only operative in this school. The question was, how many others were hiding behind teenage facades, and what were their real objectives? Maya's first week at Lincoln Heights brought a whirlwind of unexpected challenges, not from dangerous operatives, but from the complexities of normal teenage life. During morning announcements, Principal Harrison introduced her to her homeroom class. "Everyone, please welcome Maya Chen, who joins us from..." He glanced at his papers. "International School of Beijing." 28 pairs of eyes turned to study her. Maya maintained her cover perfectly. A shy smile, slightly nervous posture, exactly what you'd expect from a new student. But her attention was drawn to two students in particular. Twins, Ryan and Rebecca Torres, who watched her with an intensity that felt too familiar. Their movements were too precise, their observation too practiced. "You can take a seat next to Olivia." Principal Harrison gestured to an empty desk beside a girl with bright blue hair and multiple piercings. Olivia Parker, daughter of the school's head of security, Maya recalled from her files. A potential source of information. "Nice outfit," Olivia commented as Maya sat down. "Very safe." The slight emphasis on the last word made Maya's training kick in. Was it just teenage judgment or something more? Throughout the day, Maya carefully navigated the social landscape. She joined study groups, accepted lunch invitations, and even signed up for the school newspaper. All perfect covers for gathering intelligence. But each interaction brought unexpected complications. At home, Aunt Sarah maintained their strict operative handler dynamic, but cracks were beginning to show. During dinner, Sarah actually laughed at Maya's story about a classroom mishap. "Reminds me of my first undercover assignment in high school," she admitted, then caught herself. "But remember, we're not here to make friends." Maya noticed other changes in Sarah too. Family photos had appeared on the walls, carefully crafted props for their cover, but Sarah spent long moments staring at them. Had years of playing a normal life started to affect the veteran agent? The next morning, Maya discovered another layer to her mission when Olivia approached her before class. "Hey, new girl, we need someone to cover the story about the missing students for the school paper. Interested?" It was too perfect an opportunity. "I don't know much about journalism," Maya replied, playing hesitant. Perfect, fresh perspective. Olivia handed her a press pass. "Start with interviews. Everyone's got a theory about what happened." The press pass gave Maya legitimate reason to ask questions, access restricted areas, and interact with key witnesses. But it also meant more visibility, exactly what she'd been trained to avoid. During her investigation, Maya encountered the Torres twins again. Ryan caught her photographing the spot where Michael Davidson was last seen. "Careful," he warned. "Some stories are better left untold." His sister Rebecca added with a cold smile. "Wouldn't want another student to go missing." That evening, Maya compiled her observations in her secured tablet. The twins' threat felt too practiced, too professional. Either they were connected to the disappearances, or they were fellow operatives with their own agenda. Sarah reviewed Maya's findings with growing concern. "The twins weren't in any of our files," she muttered. "Either Section 7's intel is incomplete or there are other organizations at play," Maya finished. The thought was troubling. Section 7 wasn't the only agency that trained young operatives, but they were supposed to be the best at staying hidden. A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Maya instantly moved to a defensive position while Sarah checked the security feed. Outside stood Mrs. Martinez, the school secretary, holding a casserole dish. "Just being neighborly," she smiled when Sarah opened the door. "Must be hard moving to a new place." Her eyes scanned the house interior with practiced efficiency. Over dinner, Mrs. Martinez shared local gossip, each story carefully crafted to probe their cover story. Maya played her role perfectly, the shy niece, letting Aunt Sarah handle most of the conversation. But underneath, her mind raced. The secretary's technique was too good. Another operative? Later that night, Maya discovered a small listening device hidden in the casserole dish. Amateur work meant to be found. A warning, a test. She left it in place. Sometimes feeding false intelligence was more valuable than shutting it down. The next day brought another complication. During PE, Coach Bennett paired her with Rebecca Torres for sparring practice. As they circled each other on the mat, Rebecca's stance shifted subtly into a combat position Maya recognized from Section 7's advanced training. Their practice match quickly escalated beyond normal high school athletics. Rebecca's moves were precise, professional, definitely trained, but not Section 7's style. Maya maintained her cover, deliberately missing openings that a trained operative would exploit. "You're holding back," Rebecca whispered during a clinch, her voice too low for others to hear. "We all are." The implications were clear. Lincoln Heights had become a gathering point for multiple young operatives, all hiding behind student facades. But why? What made this ordinary school so important? Back home, Maya found Sarah in the garage, maintaining their weapons cache disguised as garden tools. "We need to talk," Sarah said, her expression grave. "I've been analyzing the pattern of disappearances. They're not random targets. They're messages. Someone is trying to flush out undercover operatives." Maya's mind raced with the implications. How many agents were hidden among Lincoln Heights' student body? And more importantly, who was hunting them? The morning air crackled with tension as Maya walked through Lincoln Heights' main entrance. After Rebecca's revelation during PE, Every student interaction had to be reassessed. The shy band kid playing saxophone by the stairs, was his instrument case concealing surveillance equipment? The student council president organizing a pep rally, was it a cover for covert meetings? Maya's first major test came during third period English. As she entered the classroom, she immediately noticed Jake Anderson, the school's notorious troublemaker and self-proclaimed king of the social hierarchy. His leather jacket and carefully disheveled hair screamed rebel, but Maya's trained eye caught the calculated precision in his movements. "New girl," Jake called out as she passed his desk. "That's my lucky seat you're heading for." The classroom fell silent, students watching with practiced interest. A dominance display, meant to establish social hierarchy, or something more? "Oh, sorry," Maya replied, perfectly executing the nervous new student role. "I didn't know." Jake's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. In an instant, Maya's combat instincts nearly took over. 6 different ways to break his grip flashed through her mind. But before she could react, another voice cut through the tension. "Back off, Jake." A tall boy with glasses stepped between them. The 1950s called. They want their bad boy routine back. Maya recognized him from her files. David Chen, president of the computer club and close friend of one of the missing students. Jake released her wrist, but his eyes held a message. This isn't over. Maya noted how his fingers had pressed specific pressure points, another trained operative's technique. "Thanks," Maya told David as they took their seats. "I'm Maya." "Yeah, I know," he smiled, pushing up his glasses. Hard to miss the new girl who's actually investigating the disappearances instead of just gossiping about them. Throughout class, Maya observed David. Unlike the Torres twins or Jake, his movements weren't practiced or precise. He slouched, fidgeted with his pen, displayed normal teenage behaviors. Either he was incredibly well-trained or, more intriguingly, he was exactly what he appeared to be. During lunch, David invited Maya to join the computer club's table. "We meet in the old AV room," he explained. "Nobody bothers us there." The location, Maya noted, had excellent sightlines of the cafeteria and multiple exit routes. The computer club members were an eclectic group. Jenny Zhao, a quiet girl who could hack the school's ancient computers in her sleep, Marcus Powell, who built custom drones for photography, and Alex Rivera, whose conspiracy theories about the missing students were uncomfortably close to the truth. "It doesn't make sense," Alex insisted, spreading out his investigation board. All 5 missing students had different social circles, different activities, but they all visited the library exactly 3 days before disappearing. Maya's pulse quickened. This detail wasn't in any official reports. "The library?" "Yeah, specifically the old reference section in the basement." Jenny pulled up the library's floor plan on her laptop. "It's been under renovation all year, but no work crews ever show up." The information was too valuable to ignore, but Maya needed to verify these civilians weren't part of some elaborate setup. She deliberately dropped her water bottle, watching their reactions. Normal, startled responses. No combat-trained reflexes. "I could help you investigate," David offered as they left lunch. "I mean, if you want. I was friends with Michael, one of the missing students. He was acting weird those last few days. Paranoid. Said he'd discovered something big." Before Maya could respond, she spotted Rebecca Torres watching them from across the hall, phone raised. Taking pictures? Sending signals? Maya needed to end this conversation naturally. "Maybe we could talk more about it after school," she suggested. "The coffee shop across the street?" David's face lit up. "Yeah, that'd be great. Around 4? Maya noted how his pulse visibly quickened, his pupils dilated. Genuine reactions, not trained responses. She'd found something rare in this web of deception, a potential ally who was exactly what he appeared to be. But as she headed to her next class, Maya's phone buzzed. A message from an encrypted number. "Getting close to civilians compromises the mission. Last warning." The threat was clear, but Maya had made her decision. David and his friends had information she needed, and more importantly, They represented something she'd never had at Section 7, genuine human connection. In chemistry, Maya caught Jake staring at her again. This time, he deliberately knocked a beaker off his desk. Maya's hand shot out, catching it reflexively, too quickly for a normal student. Jake's smirk confirmed her mistake. She'd revealed her training, and now another player knew her secret. The final bell couldn't come soon enough. As Maya walked to the coffee shop, her mind raced with possibilities. David could be an asset or a liability, but he was her best lead on the disappearances. And maybe, just maybe, he could help her understand the normal teenage life she'd been denied. Sarah's warning echoed in her head. Attachment is a liability. But as Maya spotted David waiting outside the coffee shop, a physics textbook clutched nervously to his chest, she realized some risks were worth taking. The coffee shop buzzed with after-school energy as Maya sat across from David, her training automatically noting exits, security cameras, and potential threats. But for once, her focus was drawn to something else. The genuine warmth in David's eyes as he talked about his missing friend Michael. He was acting strange those last few days, David said, absently stirring his untouched latte. Kept talking about patterns in the school's network traffic. Michael was brilliant with computers. Way better than me. He said he'd found something hidden in the system. Maya leaned forward, carefully maintaining her cover, but intensely interested. What kind of patterns? Large data transfers every Tuesday night. Heavy encryption. He tried tracking the source, but David's voice cracked slightly. That's the night before he disappeared. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the Torres twins at a nearby table. Maya noted how they positioned themselves. Perfect sightlines, optimal distance for surveillance. Rebecca pulled out a textbook, but Maya spotted the reflective surface hidden within, a way to watch them without turning around. They're always around lately, David mumbled, clearly uncomfortable. Ever since the disappearances started. Back home, Maya found Sarah waiting with an unexpected dinner guest, Mrs. Martinez, the secretary turned surveillance expert. The casserole dish was back, undoubtedly with new listening devices. Maya, honey, Sarah's voice carried the subtle edge of a warning. Mrs. Martinez was just sharing some interesting news about the school's history. Over dinner, Mrs. Martinez wove a seemingly innocent story about Lincoln Heights' founding. But Maya caught the hidden message. The school had been built with government funding, its architecture designed for surveillance. The basement library's renovation dated back to the Cold War. Later that night, Maya carefully swept her room for bugs while reviewing the day's intelligence. David's information about the network traffic aligned with patterns Sarah had noticed. But something bigger was emerging. Lincoln Heights wasn't just a hunting ground for young operatives. It was designed as one. The next morning brought a new complication. Jake Anderson was waiting by her locker, his usual smirk replaced by something more serious. "Nice catch in chemistry yesterday," he said quietly. "Section 7 trained?" Maya's muscles tensed, ready for confrontation. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Relax." Jake's voice dropped lower. "We've all got our covers to maintain, but things are happening. Big things. You might want to choose your allies carefully." His eyes flickered toward David at his locker down the hall. During lunch, Maya sat with the computer club again, watching David work on Michael's old laptop. Her training screamed at her to maintain distance, but something else, something human, drew her to these civilians who cared enough to search for their missing friend. "Look at this," Jenny pointed to her screen. "I've been mapping the school's power usage. Huge spikes every Tuesday night, but not from any official systems." Alex spread out his latest conspiracy web. "And check this out. All 5 missing students had perfect attendance records until exactly 3 weeks before they disappeared. Then they each missed exactly 1 day. Different days." Maya's mind raced. Scheduled absences, controlled power usage, signs of a systematic operation. But why let civilians get this close to discovering it? The answer came in PE class. Rebecca Torres cornered her in the locker room, all pretense of normalcy gone. "You're getting sloppy, Zero, hanging out with civilians, playing detective with the computer nerds." Maya's hand tensed around her water bottle, a potential weapon if needed. Following me now? We're all following everyone. Rebecca smiled coldly. That's the game, isn't it? But you're breaking protocol. Section 7 wouldn't approve of your new friends. Maybe I'm gathering intelligence, Maya countered. Maybe you're going soft. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. Or maybe you're planning something. Either way, consider this a professional courtesy. Stay away from David Chen. He's not part of this world. The warning only strengthened Maya's resolve. After school, she met David at the coffee shop again, this time with a purpose beyond gathering intelligence. I need your help, she said, choosing her words carefully. But helping me could be dangerous. Those patterns you found, the things Michael discovered, there's more going on at Lincoln Heights than anyone realizes. David studied her face for a long moment. I know, he said finally. Michael was my best friend. If you know something about what happened to him. I don't, Maya admitted. But I want to find out. The question is, do you trust me? The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken truths and dangerous possibilities. Finally, David nodded. Yeah, I think I do. Even though I feel like you're not telling me everything. Maya felt something shift inside her, a wall starting to crack. For the first time, she wanted to be more than her cover story, more than Section 7's perfect operative. Tuesday night found Maya perched on the school's roof, watching the empty parking lot through high-powered binoculars. David's discovery about the weekly power surges had provided the perfect opportunity for surveillance. Below, the supposedly closed library basement glowed with hidden activity. Movement at the east entrance. Sarah's voice crackled through Maya's concealed earpiece. Her aunt had insisted on providing backup, though Maya suspected Section 7 had ordered the supervision. A black van pulled up to the service entrance, its windows tinted beyond legal limits. Two figures emerged. Maya recognized Mrs. Martinez's efficient movements, but the second person made her blood freeze. Jake Anderson, not playing the rebel student now, moved with the deadly grace of a trained operative. Multiple heat signatures inside, Sarah reported. They're using the old tunnel system, Cold War remnants. Maya's phone vibrated. A text from David. In position. Security cameras looped like you showed me. She taught him basic surveillance techniques, justifying it as journalism skills. The deception left a bitter taste in her mouth. The basement lights flickered in a pattern. Maya counted. 3 long, 2 short. A signal. Moments later, a second vehicle approached. This one an unmarked maintenance truck. The driver remained hidden, but Maya spotted Rebecca Torres emerging from the passenger side. This is bigger than we thought, Sarah whispered. Those aren't Section 7 protocols they're using. Maya's mind raced. The Torres twins, Jake, Mrs. Martinez, all operating together but not for Section 7. A rival organization? Or something else entirely? A sudden movement caught her eye. Someone was climbing the fire escape 2 buildings over. Through her binoculars, Maya spotted David's distinctive glasses glinting in the moonlight. No, she muttered. He was supposed to stay with the cameras, safe and distant. Now he was compromising everything, putting himself right in the danger zone. Target spotted. A new voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Maya's heart stopped. They'd seen David. Without thinking, she fired her grappling line across to the adjacent building. Sarah's warning shout faded behind her as she swung through the darkness, landing silently on the fire escape above David. Freeze! A figure emerged from the shadows, weapon raised. Rebecca Torres smiled coldly. I told you to keep him out of this. Maya shifted, placing herself between Rebecca and David. He's not involved. He is now. Rebecca's smile widened. But thanks for confirming our suspicions about your attachment. More figures emerged from the shadows. Jake, 3 unfamiliar operatives, all armed. Maya counted angles, exits, possibilities. 5 trained agents, 1 civilian to protect, minimal cover. Maya? David's voice shook slightly. What's going on? Yes, Maya, Rebecca mocked. Tell him what's really going on. Tell him who you really are. A flash of movement caught Maya's eye. Sarah, positioning herself on a nearby rooftop, sniper rifle ready. But taking out these operatives would blow everything, expose all their covers. "You're right," Maya said carefully. "I haven't been honest." She felt David stiffen behind her. "But neither have you. Those missing students, you're recruiting them, aren't you?" Rebecca's smile faltered slightly. "Clever girl, but only partially right. We're not recruiting them. We're identifying them. Other operatives like yourself planted in schools across the country. Some from Section 7, some from other organizations." "And the civilians who get too close?" Maya's hand inched toward her concealed weapon. "Collateral damage," Jake answered coldly. "Like your friend Michael, David. Too smart for his own good." David's sharp intake of breath told Maya everything. She had seconds before he did something rash, something that would get him killed. "Stand down, Zero," Rebecca commanded. "Come with us quietly. We have questions about Section 7's operations and you're going to provide answers." Maya did the calculations. Fighting meant exposing herself to David, probably getting him killed. Surrendering meant losing everything, but keeping him alive. Unless... "Okay," she said, raising her hands. "You win. Just let him go." "Maya, no!" David started to move, but she turned, meeting his eyes. "Trust me," she whispered, letting him see the truth in her face for the first time. Then she moved, faster than any normal teenager could. Her first strike took out Jake's weapon. The second dropped an unfamiliar operative. Sarah's first shot hit nothing but air. Maya had already pulled David down, rolling them both behind a ventilation unit as chaos erupted. "When I say run," she told him, "head for the stairs. Don't stop, don't look back. I'm not leaving you." "David." She gripped his shoulders. "Please, I can't protect you and fight them at the same time." A bullet pinged off the metal beside them. Maya popped up, returning fire with her backup weapon. "Run! Now!" She covered his retreat, exchanging fire with Rebecca's team while Sarah provided sniper support. But even as she drove them back, Maya knew everything had changed. Her cover was blown, David knew the truth, and somewhere in the chaos Mrs. Martinez had vanished with whatever they'd been moving through those tunnels. The aftermath of the rooftop confrontation left Maya's carefully constructed world in shambles. Back at Sarah's house, she paced the living room while her handler made encrypted calls to Section 7 Command. "They're implementing cleanup protocols," Sarah announced, her face grim. "A team is en route to extract you. Mission compromised." Maya's heart raced. Extraction meant disappearing back into Section 7's underground facility, probably never seeing daylight again after this failure. And David. They'd eliminate all traces of her existence, wipe her from his memory. "No," Maya said firmly. "The mission isn't compromised. It's evolved. We've confirmed outside operatives are active in the school, identified their Tuesday night operations, and exposed yourself to a civilian," Sarah cut in. "The boy saw everything, Zero." "He's a liability now." A pounding at the door interrupted them. Maya drew her weapon, but Sarah waved her back, checking the security feed. David stood on the porch looking directly into the camera. "Let me in," he called out. "I know you can see me, and I know about the surveillance equipment in the garden gnomes." Sarah raised an eyebrow at Maya, who had the grace to look embarrassed. "I may have taught him a few things about spotting surveillance." Against protocol, Sarah opened the door. David marched in, his usual nervousness replaced by determined anger. "You're not normal students," he stated. "Neither are the Torres twins or Jake or half the school administration. This has something to do with Michael's disappearance, doesn't it?" Maya met Sarah's eyes, receiving a subtle nod. Some covers were already blown. Maybe it was time for partial truth. "We're investigating the disappearances," Maya said carefully. "But we're not the only ones. There are multiple organizations interested in Lincoln Heights." "Organizations that train teenagers to be spies?" David's voice cracked slightly. "I saw you on that roof. The way you moved, the weapons. You're like them, aren't you?" "Not like them," Maya insisted. "We're trying to stop them." "We?" David looked between them. Let me guess. Not really aunt and niece? Sarah stepped forward. David, what you saw tonight puts you in danger. These people have already made one student disappear for knowing too much. We need to place you in protective custody. No, Maya interrupted. He's safer in the open. They won't risk another disappearance now that we're watching, but he needs to know what he's dealing with. Over the next hour, they gave David a heavily edited version of the truth. Multiple intelligence agencies using the school as cover. The missing students, some recruits, some civilians who discovered too much. The Tuesday night operations suggesting a larger conspiracy. Michael found something in their network, David said, connecting pieces. That's why they took him. But he made backups. Encrypted files he never got to show me. Maya leaned forward. Can you access them? Maybe. I've been trying to crack his encryption, but... David's phone buzzed. His face went pale. It's my mom. She says there are men at our house asking about me. Government IDs. Sarah was already moving. Different agency. They're making their move. You have to go, Maya told David. Now, through the back. I'll create a diversion. No, he grabbed her arm. I'm not running. Michael was my friend. If his files have answers, I'm helping you find them. A car engine rumbled outside. Sarah checked the cameras. 2 vehicles, standard tactical approach formation. Maya made a decision that went against every protocol. The school basement. The tunnels they're using. They must connect to the old fallout shelter system. Maps would be in the city archives. I can access those, David said quickly. The newspaper did a story last year. I have the documentation. Maya, Sarah warned. Section 7 won't authorize. I'm not asking them. Maya met her handler's eyes. You know there's more happening here than a simple recruitment operation. We need his help. The front door burst open as armed figures rushed in. But the house was empty, the back door swinging in the breeze. By the time they discovered the tunnel entrance hidden in Sarah's basement, Maya, David, and Sarah were already moving through the underground network that honeycombed the city. The files are on a hidden server in the computer lab, David explained as they navigated the darkness. I can get to them, but I'll need time to decrypt. Time we don't have, Sarah interrupted. Every agency in town will be looking for us now. Maya's mind raced with possibilities. Unless we give them something else to look for. David, those power surges you tracked, could you trigger one manually? Sure, but... His eyes widened. A diversion. Make them think we're hitting their operation directly while we go after the files. It's crazy, Sarah muttered. It's against every protocol. It's our best shot at finding out what's really happening, Maya finished. She turned to David. Last chance to walk away. He straightened his glasses, looking more determined than scared. Michael was my best friend. Whatever he found got him killed. I want to know why. Maya nodded, something warm and unfamiliar filling her chest. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just following orders or playing a role. She was choosing her own mission, her own allies. Then let's go break into our school. The school's computer lab hummed with artificial life at midnight as David's fingers flew across the keyboard. Maya stood guard by the door while Sarah monitored surveillance feeds from her tablet, all 3 illuminated by the soft glow of monitors. Almost there, David muttered, lines of code reflecting in his glasses. Michael's encryption is complex, but there's a pattern. He wanted someone specific to be able to crack this. His typing paused. He wanted me to crack this. Maya checked her watch. We have 11 minutes before the next security sweep. The power surge diversion bought us some time, but... Got it, David exclaimed. Files began populating the screen. Network logs, security protocols, encrypted communications. Look at this. The Tuesday night power surges? They're covering up massive data transfers. And these student files, they're not just tracking missing students, they're tracking potential recruits. Sarah moved closer to the screen. Cross-referencing with known agencies. These protocols don't match any recognized organization. Because it's not an agency, a new voice said from the doorway. Maya spun, weapon raised, but Jake Anderson already had his gun trained on David. It's something much bigger. Rebecca Torres emerged from the shadows behind him, followed by Mrs. Martinez. Did you really think we wouldn't have our own surveillance on the computer lab? Especially after your little power surge stunt? Maya positioned herself between their weapons and David, mind racing through options. The computer lab had no other exits. The ventilation shafts were too small and the windows were reinforced. You should see what we found, Jake continued, his usual smirk replaced by something darker. Files on every student with special potential. Not just the obvious ones like you, Zero. The quiet ones, the observers, the ones with natural talents they don't even recognize yet. A recruitment program, Sarah realized, but not for existing agencies. For a new one, Mrs. Martinez stepped forward. One that recognizes the potential in youth without the outdated restrictions of organizations like Section 7. David's typing had quietly continued behind them. Maya heard the soft beep of a USB drive being removed, saw his slight nod in her peripheral vision. He had the files. Think about it, Zero, Rebecca offered. No more hiding who you are. No more pretending to be normal. We're building something new, something better. By kidnapping students? Maya's grip tightened on her weapon. By eliminating anyone who gets too close to the truth? By offering choices, Jake countered. More choices than Section 7 ever gave you. Join us. Help us build this. Or... His weapon shifted slightly toward David. Maya's decision took less than a second. She dropped her gun, raising her hands. Okay, you're right. Section 7's methods are outdated. But... She glanced at David, hoping he'd understand. I won't let you hurt any more civilians. Maya, don't... David started, but Rebecca was already moving forward with restraints. That's when the sprinklers activated. In the chaos of water and shouts, Maya moved. Her dropped weapon was a distraction. Her real advantage was the combat training Section 7 had drilled into muscle memory. She took down Jake first, using Rebecca's moment of surprise to disarm her as well. Sarah engaged Mrs. Martinez in a brutal close-quarters fight that sent computer monitors crashing. David, showing surprising presence of mind, had already taken cover under a desk, the precious USB drive clutched in his hand. The files are copying to an off-site server, he shouted over the sprinkler noise. 90 seconds. Maya blocked Rebecca's strike, redirecting her into Jake as he tried to recover. Sarah, fallback protocol. Her handler nodded, disengaging from Mrs. Martinez long enough to throw something at the ground. Smoke filled the already chaotic room. The tunnel entrance in the library. Maya grabbed David's arm, pulling him toward the door. Run! They sprinted through wet hallways, Maya taking down two more operatives who emerged from side rooms. Behind them, she could hear Rebecca shouting orders, voices echoing through the building. The library basement door was locked. Maya prepared to kick it down, but David stopped her, pulling out a keycard. Swiped it from Mrs. Martinez's desk last week, he explained. Thought it might be useful. The door beeped open. Inside, Sarah was already accessing the hidden tunnel entrance disguised as a bookshelf. Backup's coming, she reported. Multiple teams converging. We need to move. As they disappeared into the tunnel, Maya heard Rebecca's voice echo behind them. You can't run forever, Zero. There are only two sides in this game now, and you've chosen the losing one. The tunnel took them to an abandoned subway station. Only when they were safely aboard Sarah's backup vehicle did Maya allow herself to breathe. Did you get everything? She asked David. He held up the drive, water still dripping from his hair. Everything. Michael's files, their recruitment data. It's all here. He paused. But they'll come after us now, won't they? Yes, Maya admitted. But now we know what we're fighting. She met Sarah's eyes in the rearview mirror. And we're not running. It's time to take this fight to them. Dawn found them in a safe house on the outskirts of town, one of Sarah's personal contingencies not registered with Section 7. David sat at a makeshift workstation, analyzing the stolen files while Maya and Sarah took inventory of their resources. "This is incredible," David muttered, not looking up from his screens. "They've been profiling students for years, not just at Lincoln Heights, at schools across the country, looking for specific traits, patterns of behavior, signs of enhanced potential." "What kind of potential?" Maya moved to look over his shoulder, acutely aware of how natural it felt to stand close to him now. "Intelligence, adaptability, but mainly—" He pulled up a file. "Resistance to standard psychological conditioning. They're looking for kids who can't be brainwashed, who maintain independent thinking under pressure." Sarah's phone buzzed, a priority alert from Section 7. Her face darkened as she read it. "They're shutting us down. Full extraction order. They say we've compromised national security protocols." They're running scared, Maya realized. Whatever this new organization is, Section 7 knows about it. They're not trying to stop it. They're trying to stay out of its way. A notification popped up on David's screen. "Look at this. Every Tuesday night operation corresponded with a data transfer to this location." He pulled up a map. "It's an old military research facility supposedly abandoned after the Cold War." "Not abandoned," a new voice said from the doorway. All three spun to find Commander Foster standing there, looking distinctly uncommander-like in civilian clothes. "Repurposed." Maya's weapon was up instantly, but Foster raised her hands. "Stand down, Zero. I'm not here for Section 7. "Prove it," Sarah demanded, her own gun steady. Foster slowly reached into her jacket, producing a flash drive. "Because I'm the one who helped Michael Davidson hide his original files before they took him." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. "You? But you're Section 7's. "I was Section 7, Foster corrected. "Until I discovered what they were really preparing you for. All of you. The training program, the psychological conditioning, the emphasis on independent thinking while maintaining absolute loyalty. It wasn't to create spies. It was to create test subjects." David's fingers flew across the keyboard, verifying Foster's drive. "She's telling the truth. These files, they're from before the disappearances started. Project Renaissance, a program to identify and enhance natural human potential." "Enhanced how?" Maya's mouth went dry. "The Tuesday night operations," Foster explained, moving to examine David's screens. "They're not just data transfers, they're testing sessions. Each missing student was first identified as having specific genetic markers, then tested for compatibility with experimental procedures." Sarah's weapon hadn't wavered. "And you let this happen?" "I tried to stop it, placed my own operatives in schools to gather evidence, but they caught on, started their own recruitment program. The Torres twins, Jake Anderson, they're not just looking for test subjects now. They're building an army." Maya's mind raced through implications. "Michael found out, that's why—" "He discovered their testing protocols," Foster nodded. "Realized what they were doing to the students they took. I helped him hide the evidence, but they found him before we could expose them." A small alert appeared on David's screen. Motion sensors triggered at the perimeter. Sarah moved to check security feeds. "Multiple teams," she reported. "Professional formation, not Section 7's tactics." "They tracked me," Foster realized. "I thought I was careful, but—" "No," David interrupted, pointing to his screen. "They tracked us. The files we stole. There was a hidden tracking program. They let us take them." The first explosion rocked the safe house before Maya could respond. Foster drew a weapon as Sarah initiated defense protocols. "The research facility," Maya said quickly. "That's where they're keeping the missing students?" Foster nodded. "Underground levels, heavily guarded. They'll be moving them now that we know—" Another explosion closer. David grabbed the drives, backing up their findings. Before Maya could argue, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. "Intruder alert," a computerized voice announced. "Security breach in Sector 7. All personnel implement Protocol Renaissance." "That's not us," David said, checking his tablet. "Someone else is attacking the facility. Multiple points of entry." The security hub erupted into chaos. Guards rushed out, technicians frantically worked their stations. Through it all, Maya heard something that made her blood run cold. Combat sequences she recognized. Section 7 assault patterns. They're not shutting this down, she realized. They're securing it, taking over. A familiar voice crackled over the facility's speakers. Commander Foster. But her tone was different, colder. All Renaissance personnel stand down. This facility is now under Section 7 authority. Proceed with final testing sequence. She played us. Maya's mind raced. The safe house, the files, everything, she wanted us to lead them here. More alarms, more chaos. Through the grate, they watched guards escorting students, the missing ones, toward the main lab. Michael was among them, moving with an unnatural stillness. "What have they done to them?" David whispered. Before Maya could respond, the grate beneath them gave way. They crashed into the security hub, Maya rolling to absorb the impact and coming up fighting. But the technicians didn't attack. They were already unconscious. Jake Anderson stood over them, weapon lowered. "Took you long enough to get here." "Jake!" Maya positioned herself between him and David. "What are you—" "Trying to stop this," he cut her off. "Look, there's no time. Foster's initiating the final phase. Whatever they've done to those students, they're about to do it to everyone they've identified as compatible, starting with you, 0. Maya's combat instincts screamed that this was another trap, but something in Jake's eyes was different. Real fear. "Why should we trust you?" David demanded. "Because Rebecca's my sister," Jake replied. "My twin sister. And after what they did to her in the name of enhancement, I'm going to burn this whole project to the ground." Jake led them through service corridors, explaining as they moved. "Rebecca and I were the first test subjects. Foster recruited us years ago, promised to help us develop our natural talents. What she really wanted was to prove her enhancement protocols worked." "What kind of enhancements?" Maya asked, checking corners as they proceeded deeper into the facility. "Cognitive acceleration, enhanced reflexes, heightened awareness. But it changed her. Changed all of them. The procedures rewire neural pathways, strip away emotional responses. They become perfect operators, but they lose themselves in the process." David, who had been working on his tablet while moving, looked up. "The power surges. They're not just running tests. They're powering some kind of neural reconfiguration chamber, where they turn teenagers into living weapons," Jake confirmed. "Foster convinced Section 7 she could create perfect agents. No hesitation, no moral constraints, no fear of death. Just pure operational efficiency." They reached a sealed door marked primary testing. Through the reinforced window, Maya saw medical equipment she didn't recognize and chairs fitted with restraints. Screens displayed brainwave patterns and biological data. "Michael discovered what they were planning," Jake continued. "Started gathering evidence. Rebecca was supposed to eliminate him, but she brought him here instead, made him their next test subject." David's fingers flew across his tablet. "The security lockdown changed all the access codes. I can't get us in." "You don't have to," a new voice said. They spun to find Sarah emerging from the shadows, looking battered but alive. "Foster's people are busy fighting Section 7 teams up top. We can use that distraction." "Sarah?" Maya moved to embrace her handler, then stopped, suspicious. "Prove it's really you." Sarah's lips quirked. "The first time we met, you said you wanted to be more than just a number. That's why I agreed to be your handler, because you never lost your humanity, no matter how hard they tried to train it out of you." It was her. Maya relaxed slightly, but kept her guard up. "Foster played us all." "Not entirely." Sarah produced a security badge. "She did help Michael hide evidence, because she wanted to prove her project worked. The files we found were real, just not complete. She's been running this operation for years using Section 7 resources to build her enhanced army. And now Section 7 wants to take it over," Jake added. "Perfect timing, right when the process has been perfected." David held up his tablet. "The power surge at midnight. It's not just another test. According to these specs, they're planning to enhance multiple subjects simultaneously. everyone they've identified as compatible. How many? Maya demanded. Hundreds. Jake's face was grim. They've been identifying potential candidates in schools across the country. Tonight's surge will enhance everyone they've captured so far, including the missing students. After that, they start collecting everyone else on their list, Sarah finished, creating an army of enhanced teenage operatives. Maya studied the facility schematics on David's tablet. We need to shut down their power source. Without it— Already tried, Jake interrupted. It's got redundant systems, backup generators, fail-safes. The only way to stop it is from the main control room, which is through the testing chamber. Sarah nodded at the sealed door, where they're keeping all the enhanced subjects, including Rebecca. Maya's mind raced through options. Jake, you know the security patterns. Sarah, you have command codes. David, you can hack their systems, and you're what they want, David realized. The perfect test subject, someone who resisted all their previous conditioning attempts. Which means they'll take me to the control room, Maya finished, right where we need to be. No, David grabbed her arm. You can't offer yourself as bait. You've seen what they do to people. I'm not planning to let them enhance me, Maya assured him. Just get me close enough to shut it all down. Sarah studied her former student. You know Foster will be ready for something like this. Counting on it, Maya smiled grimly. That's why we're not going to do what she expects. Jake, you said the enhancement strips away emotion, right? Makes them purely logical? He nodded. That's why Rebecca's so different now. No emotional responses, no human connection. Then they won't expect this plan. Maya turned to David. Because it depends entirely on human connection, on trust, on emotions they don't think we should have. She quickly outlined her strategy. It was risky, dependent on split-second timing and perfect coordination. It violated every protocol she'd ever learned. It required trusting Jake, who had been their enemy hours ago, and it put David right in the middle of danger. But as she looked at their small team, a rogue operative, a damaged handler, a civilian hacker, and herself, Maya realized they had something Foster's enhanced subjects didn't, something worth fighting for. We have 40 minutes until midnight, she checked her weapons. Let's show them what unenhanced humans can really do. The facility's emergency lights cast everything in a pulsing red glow as Maya walked down the main corridor, hands raised in apparent surrender. Behind her, David and Jake dragged an apparently unconscious Sarah, selling their cover as captured infiltrators. Agent Zero, Foster's voice echoed through hidden speakers. Finally ready to fulfill your potential? You were right, Maya called out, letting bitterness seep into her voice. Section 7 held me back, limited what I could become. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Two enhanced students emerged from side corridors, Michael and another missing teen. Their movements were unnaturally smooth, eyes vacant yet alert. They escorted Maya's group toward the main testing chamber. Inside, the room hummed with barely contained energy. Rebecca stood at a control panel, her posture perfect, face emotionless. Multiple medical chairs lined the walls, each fitted with neural interfaces and restraints. Screens displayed countdown sequences, 30 minutes until the midnight surge. I knew you'd understand eventually. Foster stepped out from behind a partition. You were always meant for this, Zero. The perfect combination of training and natural ability. She gestured to the nearest chair. Shall we begin? Maya allowed herself to be led to the chair. As the restraints clicked shut, she caught David's eye. His tablet was already interfacing with a medical terminal, hidden by Jake's positioning. The others? Maya asked, playing for time. Mr. Chen's genetic markers are compatible. Foster nodded to where Michael was securing David in another chair. Ms. Winters and Mr. Anderson, unfortunately, are not. They'll be disposed of once the procedure begins. Sarah chose that moment to regain consciousness, struggling against Jake's grip, right on schedule. The enhancement process requires significant power, Foster continued, checking readings. By running multiple subjects simultaneously, we can achieve maximum efficiency. The neural reconfiguration will strip away emotional responses, leaving pure operational capability. You mean it will destroy who they are? Sarah spat. Turn them into puppets. I mean it will perfect them, Foster corrected. Just ask Rebecca. Show them, dear. Rebecca moved with liquid grace, demonstrating combat sequences too fast for normal human reflexes. But her eyes remained empty, her face blank. 20 minutes to power surge, the computer announced. Maya flexed against her restraints, testing their give. Everything depended on precise timing now. David's fingers moved subtly across his hidden tablet, while Jake positioned himself near the main door. Why schools? Maya asked, keeping Foster talking. Why target teenagers? Neural plasticity, Foster explained, adjusting equipment settings. The teenage brain is still developing, more adaptable to enhancement, and with our surveillance networks in schools across the country, we can identify optimal candidates early. Like Michael? David's voice shook with genuine anger. He was my friend. You destroyed him. I improved him. Foster stepped closer to David's chair. See for yourself. Michael, show your former friend what you've become. Michael moved toward David, movements precise and predatory. But as he leaned in, David's tablet beeped softly. Signal acquired, he whispered. Maya burst into action. The restraints, weakened by Sarah's earlier sabotage, snapped as she launched herself at Foster. Simultaneously, Jake sealed the main door while Sarah engaged Rebecca. Now, David, Maya shouted, grappling with Foster. David's hack activated, sending conflicting signals through the neural interfaces. Michael and the other enhanced student staggered, their programming temporarily disrupted. Foolish children, Foster sneered, matching Maya's combat moves with enhanced. The school secretary, it turned out, had been a licensed therapist working to help them recover. Some good came from maintaining her cover, Maya replied. Through the office window, she spotted Michael walking to class with other students, laughing at something. His recovery had been particularly successful, though occasional nightmares remained. Sarah, now officially Maya's legal guardian rather than just her handler, had taken a position as the school's new security consultant. Maya watched her talking with Rebecca and Jake by the main entrance. The twins had chosen to stay at Lincoln Heights, working through their trauma together. Section 7 is completely restructured, Sarah had told her that morning. New oversight, new protocols, no more youth recruitment program. She'd hesitated before adding, You're free to leave if you want. They've officially released you from service. Maya touched the spot behind her ear where the tracking implant had once been. After Foster's arrest, Section 7 had removed all surveillance devices from their former young operatives. For the first time in her life, Maya was truly free to choose her own path. Earth to Maya, David waved his hand in front of her face. You're missing the best part. He pointed to his screen, showing a news article about Foster's trial. The former commander had been sentenced to a classified facility, her enhancement research permanently shut down. Hard to believe it's really over, Maya mused, but David shook his head. Not over, just different. Look around. Everyone's changed, but maybe that's okay. He gestured to where Jake was helping younger students with self-defense classes, channeling his training into something positive. Rebecca had joined the debate team, relearning how to express emotions through structured argument. Maya's phone buzzed, a message from Commander Chen, who'd taken over Section 7's restructuring. They still sought her consultation occasionally, but as an independent contractor now, not a controlled asset. She replied with her analysis of their new youth protection protocols, designed to prevent another Foster situation. Still keeping some secrets? David asked, noticing her encrypted messaging. Fewer every day, Maya smiled. Their relationship had evolved into something unique, part partnership, part romance, built on complete honesty about their complicated lives. He'd helped her understand that trust wasn't a weakness, and she'd helped him find strength he never knew he had. The bell rang, signaling their next class. As they walked through the hallway, Maya noticed things her training couldn't ignore: security camera blind spots, optimal ambush positions, potential escape routes. But now these observations felt more like useful knowledge than survival requirements. "Incoming," David whispered. Maya turned to see the school's new tough guy approaching, clearly looking to establish dominance over the seemingly ordinary girl. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. His attempt to intimidate her was embarrassingly telegraphed. Maya simply sidestepped, letting momentum carry him into an open locker. The hallway erupted in laughter, but not mean-spirited, more like appreciation for a well-executed move. "Some things don't change," Sarah commented, appearing beside them with perfect timing. "But the important things do." She handed Maya an envelope, acceptance to the journalism program she'd applied to, encouraged by David and her teachers. "Speaking of change," David pulled out his tablet, showing a messaging thread. "The others want to meet tonight. Michael's been monitoring some strange network activity at other schools. Probably nothing, but—" Maya grinned. Their little group, former operatives and civilians together, had formed an unofficial watchdog network, making sure no other organization tried to replicate Foster's program. It wasn't sanctioned or official, just friends looking out for each other and protecting their peers. Normal is overrated anyway, Maya decided, taking David's hand as they headed to class. She caught their reflection in a classroom window, the former perfect operative and the computer nerd who'd helped her find her humanity. Neither of them was who they'd been 3 months ago. They were better. The final bell rang as Maya took her seat, surrounded by friends who knew her real story and accepted her anyway. She'd spent years training to be the perfect undercover agent, but in the end, the most powerful thing she'd learned was how to simply be herself. Maya stood at the podium during the Lincoln Heights graduation ceremony, delivering her valedictorian speech to a sea of proud faces. Behind her sat the graduating class, including David, Michael, and the Torres twins, all of them forever bonded by the events that had transformed their lives. "When I first came to Lincoln Heights," Maya began, sharing a knowing look with her friends, "I thought I knew exactly who I was and what I was meant to be. I was wrong. This school, and more importantly, the people in it, taught me that true strength isn't about being perfect. It's about being real." From the audience, Sarah watched with genuine pride. The former handler had fully embraced her role as Maya's guardian, their safe house now a real home, filled with actual family photos and genuine memories. Next to her sat Commander Chen, representing the reformed Section 7 at Maya's specific request. "Each of us has faced challenges here," Maya continued, carefully balancing truth with necessary secrecy. "Some visible, some hidden. But what matters isn't what tried to break us. It's how we chose to rebuild ourselves." She spotted Jake in the crowd, now teaching self-defense classes at the local community center. Rebecca sat beside him, her once cold eyes now warm with recovered humanity. The twins had become advocates for youth empowerment, using their experience to help other teenagers find their voice. "Michael Davidson," Maya acknowledged her classmate, "taught us about persistence and recovery." Michael smiled, his nightmares now rare, his brilliant mind focused on developing security systems to protect other schools. His friendship with David had emerged stronger, tempered by shared trauma and triumph. David caught Maya's eye from his seat, giving her the subtle hand signal they'd developed. All clear, everyone safe. Their unofficial security network had grown, with former test subjects at other schools joining their watchdog program. Together, they monitored for signs of any new enhancement programs, protecting their peers from shadows they'd never know existed. "Mrs. Martinez," Maya nodded to the school secretary, "showed us that sometimes help comes from unexpected places." The counseling program she'd developed for recovered test subjects had become a model for other schools, though few knew its true origins. As Maya concluded her speech, her encrypted phone buzzed quietly in her graduation robe. Another potential situation requiring investigation. Their work never really ended. But now they faced threats together, combining Maya's training, David's technical skills, and their friends' various talents. Later, at the graduation party in Sarah's backyard, their home security system still active but less obvious, Maya watched her unusual family celebrate. Section 7 operatives mingled with civilian students. Former test subjects laughed with regular teenagers, all boundaries blurred by shared experience and trust. "Think we'll ever have a normal life?" David asked, joining her by the garden that concealed their emergency arsenal. "Define normal," Maya smiled, linking her fingers with his. Their college acceptances had arrived, Maya for journalism and international relations, David for computer science and security studies. They'd chosen the same university, balancing education with their ongoing mission to protect others. Sarah approached with Commander Chen, both looking serious. "We've confirmed that activity you flagged last week," Sarah reported quietly. "Another organization, similar program, different methods." "But this time," Chen added, "we're handling it officially. No more using teenagers as pawns. Though, we could use some consultation from experienced operators." Maya exchanged looks with David, Rebecca, Jake, and Michael. They'd all received similar offers, legitimate roles helping protect others like themselves, but on their own terms. "We'll help," Maya decided, speaking for their group. "But we do this our way. No more secrets between us, no more solo operations. We're stronger together." As the celebration continued around them, Maya reflected on her journey from isolated operative to part of something larger than herself. Her training had taught her to be perfect, but her friends had taught her to be human. Her mission had brought her to Lincoln Heights, but love had made her stay. "One last thing," David grinned, pulling out his tablet. "Remember that security system you wanted for the school paper office? I added some upgrades." Maya laughed, knowing those upgrades probably rivaled military installations. But that was their life now. Extraordinary capabilities hidden beneath normal appearances, always watching, always protecting, but never losing their humanity in the process. The sun set on their graduation day, casting long shadows across Sarah's yard. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats to face. But Maya wasn't worried. She had something Foster's enhancement program could never replicate. A family forged in crisis, strengthened by trust and bound together by choice rather than conditioning. She was no longer Agent Zero. She was simply Maya. And that was more than enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.